Hi everybody, welcome to day 3 of Autoimmune cooking for the holidays. So tonight we're going to do the cheesecakes. They're super easy. I'm going to do 2 actually, one macadamia nut cheesecake and one Brazil nut cheesecake. I decided to do Brazil nut because while I was shopping for macadamia nuts a couple of days ago, I literally bought the last bit of macadamia nuts out of the bulk section, and I went to 3 different stores and everybody had pretty much sold out. So I decided to try Brazil nut, and it is an affordable alternative. Brazil nuts are a fraction of the price of macadamia nuts, which are super expensive, but if you're willing to go decadent and expensive, this is the way to go. And then this is delicious too and decadent, and it's not expensive at all. So I highly recommend it. All right, so we're over at the pressure cookers. So because we're doing 2 different cheesecakes, I'm going to use the pressure cooker for the stovetop and the Instant Pot. So what I'm going to do is take 4 cups of macadamia nuts and put them into the Instant Pot. And then I will take some water and just cover them. So enough water just to cover to the top of the macadamia nuts. And I will put the lid on, make sure that the rubber thing is there. Make sure the valve is closed. We'll go to meat stew, 30 minutes, press meat stew so it starts. And right here, I have an older Instant Pot. I make sure that this is closed, the steam release valve, but there's also another valve here, and sometimes in my pressure cooker it doesn't pop up, so I'll just stick my knife in there, like a sharp knife with a point, and I'll pull it up as it starts to build pressure, just so it's closed and it doesn't keep steaming away. And then next we'll do the Brazil nuts, so we'll put that in the stovetop pressure cooker. So again, 4 cups of nuts, and again we will just put the water to the top of the nuts, and then we'll put the lid on top, make sure that the seal is on there, and we'll close that, turn the stove on. And I like to have this steam valve open just so I know that it's building pressure, because sometimes I walk away and I forget about what's on the stove. And if I forget that this is on the stove and it's closed and it's boiling away, I wouldn't be very happy about that. I have only been using this pressure cooker for about 6 months, and they used to scare me, and I thought I'd never go near them for the life of me, and now I'm the old lady that has a pressure cooker that has to cook all her food with pressure. So anyway, so this will be 30 minutes for the macadamia nuts, 60 minutes for the Brazil nuts. They're a bit bigger, they're a bit harder, they're denser, so they need 60 minutes, 60 minutes, so 1 hour. And then we just let this slow release, and I'll open them at the same time and we'll blend them up at the same time. All right, so we're back at the pressure cooker. The release valve is starting to steam a little bit, so I'm going to close that up. And the bobber valve that holds the pressure is up, and so I'm going to slowly turn this down to minimum. So I'm going to go to medium high just for, I don't know, 20 seconds. I can hear it building pressure. And it sounds like it just sealed a bit. So we'll give it a couple more seconds. And we'll turn it to low. And it is pressure cooking. So we'll leave that for 60 minutes, this for 30 minutes. All right, so we're over at the food processor. The crust is really easy. You'll take 1 cup of almonds, and I have blanched these. So I've taken whole almonds, I have boiled them for 1 minute, and I've popped the skins off. Skins are not good for autoimmune disease. I had a response to them. And I had a response to almond butter because they tend to make it with the skin on. and so I stay away from that. Almond flour is okay. They use blanched almonds for almond flour. So you could even use almond flour for this if you don't want to blanch and process your almonds. So you need 1 cup of almonds, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 dates. So these are Medjool dates. They're big, they're juicy, they're amazing. So I do buy them pitted. And so what I do is I just pull them apart. I pull the pit out, and then I put them in the food processor. This is going to be really loud, so I'm actually going to turn off the camera while it's processing. All right, so the food processor is done. It took about 1 to 2 minutes to process the almonds and the dates, and it's this beautiful texture, this light kind of meal that it's created. And before I put that into the pie plate, I will take a springform pan, and I've measured out some parchment paper, and what I like to do is cut a square that comes up to almost the top of the pie plate on each side. The papers, I fold it in half, and then I fold it in half again, and then I fold it into a triangle, and I take the springform pan apart. And then what I do is I estimate where the middle is approximately, and then I just kind of cut around like this, and then we get this perfect, start to close it up. And then I've got some coconut oil that I use, and I just stick the side bits on with a bit of coconut oil. Like that. And pour the meal directly into the pan. And press it down. Okay, so the Brazil nuts have slow released, and I've actually jostled them around in a big sieve just to get some of the skins off. You'll want to try and get most of the skins off. They look like this now. If you can't get all of the skins off, that's not too bad. So we'll take the 4 cups, make sure they're fully drained, and we'll put them into the Vitamix. If you don't have a Vitamix, you can use your food processor, but it takes a really, really long time. It took me about 10 minutes. I tested it out in my food processor, and it took a really long time. And then you've got to stop it every so often and then scrape down the sides. But I do it in the Vitamix. So we've got the 4 cups of the Brazil nuts cold, and then we've got 3/4 cups of maple syrup, pure maple syrup. And we put that into the Vitamix, and then I'll add a whole can of coconut milk, and you'll want 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Slowly work your way up in speed, and then just keep on working this thing, and it will it'll turn into a cream cheese texture. All right, so this is the texture that you want it to be at, and the consistency. It looks like cream cheese. And we'll just pour this onto the pie crust. All right, once you've scraped out, and it's quite the effort to get this cheese out of the Vitamix, it will look like this. So you just kind of scrape it around nicely. We'll put some parchment over top to protect it, and then we put it in a bag, and we put it in the freezer, and you want to freeze it overnight. All right, now for the macadamia cheesecake. So we do 4 cups of the drained macadamias into the Vitamix. We'll do half a can of coconut milk. That's 400 milliliters. We'll do 1 tablespoon of vanilla. We'll do 3/4 cups of maple syrup. And we will do the juice of 2 lemons. I have right here the juice of 2 organic lemons and the zest of half of one of those organic lemons that I juiced. And then you'll do 1/2 cup of coconut oil, partially melted. And I use virgin coconut oil for raw baking, and I use the refined coconut oil for cooking on the stove top. And then you'll put the lid on, you'll turn it to 8, you'll plunge it with the plunger. Okay, so I just burnt out my Vitamix motor. Hopefully it comes back to life, but I don't think it liked doing 2 batches of emulsifying nuts into cheese. And I thought it would last, but it didn't. So note, do not do 2 batches in a row. Do 1 at a time and maybe space it out a day. So I moved the mixture, the macadamia mixture, over to the food processor, and it took about 10 minutes to get it to the right texture. It's not as fine and creamy as the Vitamix mixture, but that's okay. This tastes really good. I had a little taste. So I'm going to transfer it over to the other springform pan I had ready with the crust in the bottom. And I will just continue scraping this out. All right, so I'm all done with the macadamia nut cheesecake. So it's a little more coarse, but that's okay. I wanted to let you know that my husband just tested out the Vitamix. It cooled down and it's fine now. But just beware when you're emulsifying stuff and you want to turn something into cheese, just don't overuse your Vitamix, because I just learned that. And then we will put this in we'll put parchment on top, place it in a plastic bag, and then put it in the freezer. All right, so we're back at the stove. So you're going to take 2 cups of cranberries, organic fresh cranberries. I'm gonna use 1.5 cups of frozen raspberries. They're GMO free, they're not organic. And 1.5 cups of Swerve granulated sugar. And the zest of half of a lemon. So we'll put that all in, we'll turn that on high, and then we will cook that into, just down a little bit, into a sauce. It'll take a few minutes to get there. All right, so after about 4 to 5 minutes of stirring the sugar in and it's fully dissolved, you add 1/2 cup of water, and then you will bring that to a boil. After whisking for about 5 minutes, it reduces and it becomes this beautiful coulis. We'll transfer to a serving dish. All right, on the stovetop, again at high heat, so I did the cranberry sauce at high heat. We're going to do the brown sugar sauce. We add 1/4 cup of goat butter, and then we add a whole cup of Swerve brown sugar, and we whisk that together and let both of the butter and the brown sugar dissolve together. So it's taken a few minutes stirring constantly, and the butter has melted and the brown sugar has dissolved, and it is this consistency. I don't know if you can see it. There we go. And then after that is combined, we will, and stirring constantly, slowly add the coconut milk. We don't want to add it too fast. We want it to stay fairly hot. And it's starting to bubble on the side of the pan. Much easier with your left hand. And we'll let it bubble, come to a boil, stirring constantly for about a minute. I have transferred the caramel brown sugar Swerve mixture over to a jug, and I've poured it onto the Brazil nut cheesecake. And I've added some nuts and some cranberries that have been sweetened with apple juice. And it is incredible and it's delicious. And the other cheesecake, the macadamia cheesecake, I have added the coulis, the berry coulis to it, and it is delicious as well. So remember, when you pull them from the freezer after being frozen overnight, it takes about 4 hours for a larger cake, 3 to 4 hours, and for the smaller cake, if you do a half batch, like this one was a half batch, if you do that half batch, it's 2 hours, about 2 hours to thaw out. So I would serve both cheesecakes right away. The Brazil nut cheesecake doesn't hold as well for long periods of time after it's thawed. The macadamia nut cheesecake does, but it does tend to change color. So definitely serving both as soon as they've thawed, right after that time period that I'd mentioned, is the best idea. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful Christmas and happy holidays.